Rhaenyra comes into power, she could cut off any challenge to her succession.
I am to inherit the Iron Throne. She will block my way.
Yeah, I guess the first thing I want to ask is, I've seen episode 1. At what point do we meet your incarnations of the characters?
Because it's
everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Episode 6.
Yeah.
And how have they changed from the younger version of the characters that we meet? Have they changed a lot in that?
Different heads. They have changed a lot. I mean, think about yourself when you were 18. Just like, it feels like such a far away different person. And they're adults now, and they have, in some ways, a lot more agency and a lot more power that they wield, and then in a lot of ways they don't have that much autonomy at all.
And they're I think questions that start at the beginning of the series about sort of self-actualization and kind of claiming one's name and understanding the roles that are inherited. I think the same questions are sort of being asked and investigated later in the series. Just maybe with like incrementally greater agency to sort of affect change.
Because in episode 1 we see each of them kind of having to navigate the patriarchal society they're in different ways. When we meet them further down the line, are they able to kind of push back against that a little bit more?
I think I think they are pushing back in quite different contexts by the time that we come in. For like Rhaenyra, eventually she kind of understands that you can possibly carve out new spaces or alternative spaces. Meanwhile, like Alicent's seeking space very much within inside the court.
Yeah, trying to carve out a non-existent space for herself within this traditionalist, patriarchal world.
Does Venera believe absolutely that she has the right to be the heir to the throne, or is there a little bit of doubt in her, do you think?
I sort of think both are true. I think actually probably she scapegoats her doubt onto her father. I think ultimately, despite the fact that her and her father are quite like fundamentally different, I think she probably craves his praise above anyone's, and is unfortunately too stubborn to ever ask for it. And I think the way that kind of gets translated is into a drive towards this kind of this end point that she sees as the completion of like his will and doing right by him. So I think that's a way that we sort of, skirt around our own fear.
What bonds your two characters? Like, what is the kind of building block of their relationship, do you think?
I mean, they share an upbringing. They're sort of quasi-siblings at the start of the series.
Yeah, and I think they both value what each other isn't as well. And I think Alicent is incredibly excited about Rhaenyra and the possibility of being enveloped by her. And I think when you meet them, I think she's possibly too scared at that time to embark on any of the activities that Rhaenyra wants to do. But I think is excited for the future for the both of them to be... Because I think they both see each other as role models as well.
Yeah, I do.
And each person has something that the other desperately wants.
And there's something really special, right? If you grow up in a particularly unique environment and there is essentially one person of a similar age to you who's growing up in similar circumstances and is able to empathise and understand that very specific experience, I think it forms a really fundamental bond. Again, that of sort of quasi-siblings.
This is maybe quite a big question, but what do you think will surprise people most when they watch the show? I watched episode 1 this morning, and I've got to say it really woke me up. There's a lot.
There's a lot in the morning, yeah. I think just how intimate it is on such a large scale. It's such an intimate excavation of this one family. Yeah, there's a real closeness.
I agree, and within that sort of family environment, I think the show is quite brave and exacting in its sort of investigation of sort of structural patriarchy is like a fundamental groundwork within even like a family unit. And I think it's a really bold investigation of that, and about how power inequality warps agency and affects agency.
I just spoke to your co-star Steve, and he said he thinks you can really tell the difference between this and the start of Game of Thrones, in that House of Dragon kind of places the women's stories more central right from the start. Obviously Game of Thrones had some iconic female characters, I don't want to take that away, but he said you could tell that this has kind of come post-Me Too in that respect.
I mean, I just don't think it was any accident. Like, Ryan and Miguel spoke very clearly and determinedly to both of us, even like in the midst of the audition process, in saying that this is a story structured around two women. And Miguel says a nice thing about that being a good enough reason to return to Westeros, which is, you know, just a universe that requires such respect that he needed a good enough reason to brave the return journey.